today I want to talk about the relationship between work and learning, which is the heart of that. Now, this can mean work-based learning, can mean signalling the importance of either having learners who are primarily set up in an educational institution within their course have opportunities to be in work settings, or it can mean people in employment accessing and linking up with educational institutions, and it can mean building more into the actual jobs themselves in certain companies, issues of learning within that. It can mean a whole set of things. But work and learning can also mean work-related learning. Because if in the end of looking at it another way, if part of the purpose of some of the learning and the curriculum in FE and HE is to help people gain employment, don't let's confuse the outcome with the process. That may well very often mean that we want to do that via work-based learning, but in many instances it may not. It may mean forms of simulation, forms of observation, forms of theoretical reflection may be appropriate. We always need to examine what is appropriate to achieve the ends, not assume that a particular educational system, be it traditional lecturing or be it get them into work because they'll learn more there, is right. So work-based learning, yes. Work-related learning, yes. Learning at work, yes. This can be different. I was talking just last week to some of the people from American Express who are working on some of the Albion learning and community programs about how American Express gives them time within their employment to go and develop things with the Albion. I was talking to a particular guy who's an IT specialist about work he's been doing with disabled schools. And he talked about a lot of, it's quite a senior guy, he talked about a lot of learning he was able to do through that, through the conditions allowed and enabled by his employer, learning that applied to whole ranges of his life. I mean, he talked about the value of this work in helping him explain to his own children what issues of disability are about. He talked about the value of helping understand better some of the people he managed in his employment. So learning at work, and of course some trade unions have been very good at this, or learning through with employers, which may not be necessarily directly related to the work context, but is enabled by that structure, is something else we should value. And equally, something that, for want of a better phrase, and this is not a good phrase, learning for utility. What do I mean by that? I mean that a lot of learning that's very applied, very skill-based, can be applied both to paid settings and non-paid settings. It can be something that people can use valuably, whether they're volunteering, in their everyday lives as carers, in what they might do in local community development, what they might do in supporting thinking about environmental issues, as well as what they might do in work settings, either ones they have now or for the future. There may be a range of forms of learning that are less divided between things that relate to formal employment and relate to other forms of intervention or other forms of context. So I call that learning for utility, just to take learning for use value could be another way of putting it. So all these things can be interrelated in the spectrum, and of course there is a lot going on. Just last week I was in a discussion in a FE setting where a member of an FE board was looking at some data about apprenticeships, and this data said, well, so-and-so, how many people progressed from this level to that level, and he said, I understand this, that in my industry, apprenticeship means you do something for 5 years. You know, what's all this about this moving around and so on? And people start explaining, okay, I've got it now. You're now using the word in a slightly different way, which is okay, as long as I understand what you're saying. So there's a lot going on here about the variety of things we can do, and I think Jerry, referred to the need for creative and different ways of doing things in the future. There's a lot about the skills and capacities that lie behind that. I suppose what I'm saying is, if we start with work and learning as a couplet, that's great, and it takes us in certain directions, and work-based learning is a central direction, and we need to do more of it and do it better, and it can mean a number of things. But there are these other things as well that spin off from that, that give us this broader perspective.